Welcome back to the Constitution Line by Line. I'm Senator Mike Lee. Today we're going to take a look at Article 1, Section 9, which outlines the powers specifically denied to Congress. The text of Article 1, Section 9 reads, quote, "The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation, not exceeding $10 for each person. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when, in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. No tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state." Whereas Article 1, Section 8 provides a list of powers granted to Congress, Section 9 expressly forbids Congress from exercising authority in certain areas. This may seem like a redundancy, given that everything that was not included in the list of enumerated powers is assumed to be outside of Congress's authority. But the founders wanted to lay extra emphasis on certain things to make sure that certain things couldn't be done and couldn't be justified under other provisions of Article 1, Section 8, such as the necessary and proper clause. Now here again we see the great concerns the framers had for making sure that commerce could take place among and between the states without impediment. Tariffs on exports from the states are prohibited, as well as preferential treatment to certain ports. We also see concerns for due process of law here, with clauses preventing ex post facto laws, that is, certain laws that have a retroactive effect, and requiring the writ of habeas corpus, meaning that people held in federal custody would have to be physically brought before a judge or a court to ensure that their detention was legal. Bills of attainder, of course, which allow for the conviction of suspected criminals without a trial, are also prohibited. Finally, you have some checks on government power, such as requiring appropriations bills to be passed before money from the Treasury could be spent, and the forbidding of titles of nobility from being granted to citizens. This last provision was inserted for two reasons. The first was a matter of philosophy. The framers wanted to create a more democratic society, distinguished from the corrupt aristocracy of the English system from which they had seceded. Second, they wanted to prevent the buying of political favors by foreign nations with titles that would increase the influence of foreign sovereigns and foreign leaders, and challenge the loyalties of American citizens. The first clause of Article 1, Section 9 has to be acknowledged as kind of a stain on the Constitution, in that it prevented Congress from interfering with the slave trade prior to the year 1808. This was a compromise in order to induce the southern states, where slaveholding was still a major part of the economy, to agree with the Constitution. When he became president, Thomas Jefferson promoted and signed legislation banning the importation of slaves, effective January 1st, 1808, the earliest date permitted by the Constitution. Today, this clause stands as a sober reminder that the creation of a new nation was sometimes an ugly business. Clause 2 of Section 9 specifies that the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended by an act of Congress in times of great need. To date, this has happened only 4 times in our nation's history, most famously when President Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus during the Civil War. Lincoln acted on his own authority, triggering a backlash that led to his having to seek congressional approval for his actions, approval which he eventually attained. Section 9's prohibition against direct taxation may seem strange to us today, given what we have to go through every April 15th. Now, a direct tax is distinguished from an indirect tax in that an indirect tax is laid on some activity or product, such as an excise tax or a sales tax. A direct tax, on the other hand, applies directly to individuals and their property, such as a tax on land or on wealth. In Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Company, the Supreme Court in 1895 struck down the income tax that had been passed by Congress, and they did so concluding that it was an unconstitutional direct tax. This decision was superseded in time with the ratification of the 16th Amendment in 1913, permitting Congress to levy a federal income tax on all American citizens. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Constitution Line by Line. Please join me next time when we'll be looking at the last section in Article 1 dealing with limits on state government power. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. I'll see you next time.